Hello, welcome. In this video, we'll be looking at the input function and the string operators. Remember, if you have any comments, any questions, you could always drop a chat in the comment section. And please remember to subscribe and so that you get notifications. Alright, the input function and the string function we'll be looking at right about now. Alright, what are the input functions and what does it do? We're looking at the idea of the input function, and we use it with an argument and also try to talk about typecasting. All right. All right, so what is the input function? So before now we've been talking about the print function, whereby we can send data or output to the console. And yeah, so it is more like a one-way thing where we just keep printing things to the console. But using the print function now, we want to be able to get data from the keyboard, and that is where the input function comes in. Now, input functions work when the program is running. In cases like this, whenever you call the input function, it halts the program and expect an input from the keyboard into the program. Alright, so let's test this example that we have here. So I'll clear this up right now. We say print something, and I say that tell me something. Then I say anything. Anything equals to input. So this is how to use the input function, and I can print what I just got. Remember how to do that. Let me just put a string, then I say anything, then I say really. Alright, so what is going on here is not too complex. So here we are just printing. By now you know what is happening here. We are printing tell me something to the console, right? Let's keep the second line. Let's go to the third line. We have another print, so we are printing which is a string to the console. Then this variable called anything, the value inside this variable called anything, then we'll continue to print this string argument out. So we are printing this and this and this together on a straight line. Alright, so if I should save this and run on my, alright, to run this, so you see it's printed the first line, which is tell me something. As you can see here, we have tell me something. Then you notice this guy here staying there expecting something to happen. That is where the second line comes in. Now this input function is expecting an input from the keyboard. It is expecting an input from the keyboard, and it's definitely sorry. Alright, so it is expecting an input from the keyboard, which is what's oh sorry, I think I might have moved my console. I can't find it. Okay, sorry, that was a little glitch. Alright, it's back. Alright, so it is expecting an input from the keyboard. That is why it is just waiting this on some IDE. You would see the cursor blinking. If you are using command prompt, it will be blinking, but for this case it is just they expecting me to type in something. So I'll just type something, something. This is what I'm replying now, so that it would look different. So I'll say something, you say, let me put a question mark, then enter. Then do you notice what happened? It's printed the third line here, which is then the variable that has been saved inside. Now what has happened here when I typed this something you say with this question mark and enter is that it saves everything I've typed here. After I've pushed the enter button, the return button, it saves it inside this variable called anything and prints it out here. So everything you see here was what was saved inside this variable called anything, and that is what was printed out here. So you see we have anything, then really. So the anything here is something you say, which is what I typed in here into the console, as you can see. Then we have it outside there, really. All right, so let's see more examples on how to use this input function. All right, so we want to make our code more friendly, so that because when we press the return key, when we ran our code on the second line, it was expecting us to print something, but we never knew. Anybody would not know. I only know because I was the one who wrote this code. But then I want it to be interactive with the users so that they could see something and really understood that this is what we are expecting. All right, so instead I would write my code this way. I could say that so the input function also allows us to print something to the console at the same time we are expecting it to okay, at the same time we are expecting it to receive value or something from the keyboard. Now as you can see here, now it is a bit different from the first case where we have input and we just close this parentheses here. Now but this time we are now putting an argument inside the input function. Now what is the argument we are putting in there? It is a string argument, and this string argument says tell me anything. Now what this does is that it prints this tell me anything to the console while it is also waiting for you to type in something from the keyboard. So now I'm going to print whatever thing that is saying. So the same thing I did earlier, I just said then I put my the value I get from there, which is this anything. Then let's say really. All right, so just the same program, but now it is looking different. So if I should run this, you see we're having the same thing we had the first time. We're having it again, tell me anything. And why? Because as I've explained earlier, the input function also allows arguments inside it, this string argument, and print it out to the console, tell me anything. Now it is showing something here that tell me anything. So what I'm going to tell it is something, just as I've said earlier, something you say. Oh, do you mean me to say anything? Then I put enter, then you see we have something you say really, which is what we're expecting to print here. Something you say, then really the value saved into anything, which is something you say, then finally really. All right, so let us see another sample. Let's see. Oh, let's still use anything. Now instead of saying tell me anything, let me change this to something like enter a number, and I put a space. Please remember, so the reason why I'm putting a space here, if you notice here, after it has shown me tell me anything and it was expecting me to type in something from the keyboard, then immediately I started typing things from the keyboard, there was no space. Everything is joined all together. So that's why I'm putting my space here now. Unlike the other time, there was no space, so everything was joined together. So please note, if you want a space, put a space. Anything you want, just you can do it. All right, so let me say this thing. Let me say anything. Remember, anything is not a variable and you can use it. No, you can use it anyhow. All right, so okay, it is important. Let me show you this. I just remember something. Now that we are collecting a number, let me multiply the number we are getting by 2. All right, so if I want to print this number out, so I say let me print this. Okay, yeah, let me print this thing, just this thing. So remember, we say enter a number, but then after we put in the number, we now want to multiply that number by 2 just to explain something. So let me run this code and I will explain now. All right, so if I put in, let's say 5. No, 5 times 2 should give us a 10, right? But then see this, what happens after I put in my 5 and I run, it gave me 55. Something is up, something is going on. All right, so I would explain. So this is what is happening in string. Whenever you multiply in strings, a string, let's say you have p and you multiply p times p. P times p will give me 2p. So let me say print p multiply sorry, a string, let me say string p, and now let me multiply it by 3 here just to make it different. So let me run this. You see we're having 3 p's printed, p p p. All right, so that is another thing about string. Don't worry, we said we will talk a bit about string, but we're already doing that now. All right, so this explains what happens here. So this means that so what we are trying to show or to explain here is that anything that is being passed into an input function is a string. It is a string. Python treats it as a string. So whenever you put in, even if it is a number, it is still being treated as a string. Please note that whenever you put in anything here into an input function, even if it is a number, it is treated as a string. Even if it is a boolean like true or false, it is still treated as a string. All right, so that takes us to typecasting. So the idea of typecasting is we want to be able to change the data type from string to a number, either an integer or a floating number. Or like I said, typecasting is when you change the data type to something else. So, or if it is in let's say it is a number and you would like to change it to a string, then typecasting is your friend. All right, so we say typecasting is a solution to our challenge that we got earlier. By the way, Python offers two functions to help us solve that problem. The first function is called the int function, and the other one is the float function, this other float function. All right, so the int function, what it does is it casts the type into an integer, meaning a number without a decimal number, while the float changes it into a number with a decimal, which is something with decimal. All right, let us see a sample from what we were saying earlier. Remember we typed in 5 here, then we expected 5 times 2 to give us 10. So I'm running the same code, but this time I'm now going to change it to an integer, then I'll try a float. So this is how to do typecasting. Let me remove that. Let's say we have anything. I'll just use anything as a variable. Now this is a string and it is 5. Please don't mix this as a number. Remember when we're talking about literal, whenever it is in a quote, it is not a number. Right. So we have this 5, and I want to do, I now say print anything, okay, anything times 2. Oh, let me say times 5. I'm expecting it to show me a 25, but it is printing 5 in 5 places. All right, so this is where the casting, this is how to use a casting. So I want to cast it into an integer. So I'll say int, then the variable inside that function. So the int takes in an argument, which is this guy that I'm casting. So if I save this and I run this, you see we have a 25. Now anything, the string called 5 that has been saved inside anything as a string is no more a string here. It is still a string here, but outside here it is no more a string. It is now an integer which can now be multiplied by 5 to give us 25. So the same way we can do for integer, we can also do for float. Please now note, in integer we have 25. Now when I'm casting to float, we have 25.0. Please note that, as you can see that. All right, so back to the one we were trying to do earlier. So now we want to run the same code, and we'll be using 5 and we are multiplying by 2. Oh, sorry, we've not done the casting. So I would cast here. Let me cast into an integer. So please note where my brackets are. The bracket for this integer is the one outside here, and the one that is outermost, the outermost bracket here, that is the closing bracket for this integer function here, and the one for the input function is this innermost bracket, as you can see. All right, so let me save and run this down this time. This should still give me, sorry, yeah, so I'm running my code again. So I'm putting 5, You see now our answer is is now 10, which is 5 times 2, 10. So if I change this to float, that means I'm trying to cast it into float, and I run this code and I say 5, we have 10.0 because now it has been cast into float. Now the typecasting here that we talked about here is just for numbers. You remember I said you can cast into strings and all, but for now we're talking about numbers. We'll take it step by step. All right, very quickly we'll talk about string operations in the same video, where we'll talk about concatenation, replication, and type conversion into string. Yay, we're talking about conversion into string now. That is the other kind of casting. All right, concatenation in string, we're going to be starting with the very first one, which is the plus sign. Now we can concatenate two different strings together by using the plus sign, and what this does is it brings two different strings together and merges it together as one. As you can see, we have water and we have melon. So we have watermelon here, as it were. All right, now let's see some examples where we could use typecasting. All right, so we have something like this. So we have first name. I will call first name. Let us get an input from the keyboard. Let's say, may I have your first name, please? Let's be kind about it. And then put a space here. Then we want to get our last, so no space, remember, the variable. We are also trying to get an input, and we say, may I have your last name, please? Space. All right, so now we just want to print our appreciation, just to show that we are grateful for you giving us that your information, and we want to print out the information we got. So before I start printing, remember we have something like this, and remember the new line character. So this only creates a new line. So instead of me doing print, an empty print, and typing what I needed, no, so I just want a new line there. Your name is let me space that. Okay, now I want to concatenate my first name, and let me put a space here, and I say plus and last name, and let me add a full stop just to end that. All right, so let me save this. So I want to believe you know what is going on here. This prints to the console, please may I have your first name, please. Then they expect you to put in an input which will be saved inside first name, and this also requests for your last name, which will be saved into last name. It's print thank you, then this prints a new line before printing your name is whatever thing you've typed that has been saved into your first name, adds a space, then whatever thing you've typed into your last name, then ends it with a full stop. All right, so let's save that and run, please. My code. All right, may I have your first name, please? Oh, my first name is Michael. Enter. May I have your last name? Oh, my last name is Father Ray. And if you say, it says thank you, then pretend an empty space because of this escape character we use here, the new line character we use here. Then it says your name is Michael, Father Ray. All right. So we're talking about replication now. Replication, we've seen this earlier where you use the multiplication sign. So when you use multiplication sign, it shows that value more than once. Let me see this. So if you have something like print, remember a string, so if you use a number it won't work. So let me just print 5 dashes to the screen. Oh no, 10 dashes there. So I want to print 10 dashes to the screen. Now you run that, then you see we have our 10 dashes on the screen. All right, so we have the type conversion, which is typecasting. Now we want to convert from an integer into string. So either ways, whenever you use str, that is the str function, it converts that number into string. Alright, so for this guy here, I will just say I have a number called 5. So remember, if I multiply, if I do this, these are both numbers, so we should get a 50 by the time I run this code. We have a 50, but now I want it not as a number. I want to cast it into a string, so I do str then this. Then if I should save this, I'm expecting it to print 5 in 10 places, and yes, it did that. So there is a little exercise or something you could play with in replication actually. So yeah, you could play with this. It's what it does, it prints a rectangle to the console. Please play with that, see what it does. All right, so I think for now that is that for now. And yes, there is an assignment. You see that in the manual that I've shared. Please try it out. There are 2 different assignments. Interesting assignment. This is just to evaluate this code. What it asks you to do is, this is the expression, then write a code. This is the skeleton of the code. Use the skeleton. So when you are done and you are trying to test your code, whenever you put in 1 as the value for x, your answer should, your y should be this. Then when you put in 10, your answer should be this second one. When you put in 100, your answer should be this. So you can test with these 4 different values to see if you get that. And the other lab here is this here. This shows time. So what this does is it checks, if the time is 12 o'clock now, and I say, set an alarm for me in 15 minutes. 15 minutes from now should be 12:15. Yeah, so write a code that tells you what the time will be after you supply the numbers of minutes, a number which is represented in minutes. For instance, for the example I gave, if the time is currently 12 and I supply 15, it will take that 15 as 15 minutes. So it will show you the time 15 minutes after, which is going to be 15 minutes after 12. So if the time is 12:15 now, and I put in 30, the result of this code should be 12:45, because 12:15 plus 30 minutes should give us 12:45. So that is the idea of this code. So this is the skeleton, and these are the test value that you can use. So when the time is 12:17 and you put in 59 minutes, that is like an hour, so your answer should be 1:16. So when you put in 23, that this is 11:59 in the night, 58 in the night. When you put in 642 minutes, your time should be 10:40 in the morning. And when you say the time is 12:01, which is 12 midnight, then you say this amount of minutes, 2939, then your time, your next time should be this. So please enjoy the texts and the labs. And if you have any comments, any complaints, you can always reach out to me via the comment section or on Twitter. I'll drop the link for my Twitter in the description box. Thank you. See you in the next video. Cheers.